Commander Hana stared at the impossible readings on her screen. The survey ship Eternal Reach had been exploring the galaxy's edge for 6 months, finding nothing but dead space and dying stars. But now her instruments showed something that made no sense. "Dr. Jiwan, come look at this," Hana called to the ship's scientist. Jiwan hurried over, her boots clicking on the metal floor. She was young for a xenobiologist, but she had sharp eyes and a quick mind. "What is it, Commander?" "Energy readings from the Kepler 442 system. Massive power output, but that star should be almost dead. It's a red dwarf with barely enough fuel left to burn." Jiwan studied the data. Her face grew confused. "This doesn't make sense. The energy signature looks artificial, but who would build anything out here? This is the galaxy's trash pile." For 300 years, the Galactic Confederation had mapped the Milky Way. They had found 847,000 star systems and cataloged every intelligent species. The outer rim was considered worthless, too far from trade routes, too poor in resources, and too dangerous with its unstable stars. "Set course for Kepler 442, Hana ordered. "I want to know what's out there." The journey took 2 days. As they approached the system, the readings grew stronger. What they found amazed them. A massive space station orbited the dying red dwarf star. It was clearly artificial, made of metal and strange materials they had never seen before. Smaller ships moved around it like busy insects. On the second planet, lights showed a thriving colony. "Unknown species," Jiwan whispered. "How is this possible? Our survey said this area was empty." Hana opened communication channels. "This is Commander Hana of the Confederate survey ship Eternal Reach. Please respond." Static filled the bridge. Then a voice came through, speaking in a language their computers didn't recognize at first. The translation systems worked quickly. "This is Captain Lee Kyung of the colony ship New Seoul. Welcome to our system, strangers. We haven't seen other people in a very long time." Hana and Jiwan looked at each other in shock. The voice sounded almost familiar, but the name of their ship was completely unknown. "Captain Lee, what species are you? Our records show no known civilizations in this region." A pause, then laughter. "We are human, Commander. We've been here for 300 years since our ancestors left Earth to find a new home." "Earth?" Jiwan checked her databases frantically. "There's no planet called Earth in our records. It's our homeworld," Captain Lee replied. "Far on the other side of the galaxy. We lost contact long ago. Are you here to trade? We would welcome the chance to meet new friends." Hana made a decision that would change everything. "Captain Lee, we would be honored to visit your station." The docking was smooth. The humans had built their station well, with strong metal walls and clean air systems. When the airlock opened, Hana got her first look at these mysterious people. Captain Lee was tall and lean, with dark hair and kind eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform that looked practical rather than fancy. Behind him stood other humans, men and women with Asian features, all looking curious and welcoming. "Welcome to New Seoul Station," Lee said with a warm smile. "We are so happy to meet you. It has been 3 centuries since we spoke to anyone from the greater galaxy." As they walked through the station, Hana was impressed. The humans had built a complete civilization here. Gardens provided fresh food. Workshops hummed with activity. Children played in safe areas while their parents worked. Everything was clean, efficient, and peaceful. "How do you survive out here?" Jiwan asked. "This star is almost dead. It should barely provide enough energy to warm a small moon." A human woman named Park Minji stepped forward. She was the station's chief engineer, with grease-stained hands and bright, intelligent eyes. "We have special technology. Our fusion reactors can work with very little fuel. We also have ways to gather energy from space itself." She led them to the engine room. Hana had never seen anything like it. The machinery was strange but beautiful, with flowing lines and crystals that glowed with soft light. It looked primitive compared to Confederate technology, but it clearly worked well. "Fascinating," Jiwan murmured, taking readings with her instruments. "The energy output is incredible, but I can't understand how it works." The humans were happy to share their knowledge. They had been alone for so long that they were excited to talk to other people. Captain Lee showed them around the colony on the planet below. Millions of humans lived there in cities that looked both strange and wonderful. "We call this place Hope," Lee explained as they walked through a market full of unusual foods and crafts. "When our ancestors arrived, they thought they would die here. But we learned to make it work. We are survivors." For 3 days, the visit went perfectly. The humans were friendly and helpful. They shared their food, their stories, and their dreams. Hana began to think they would make good allies for the Confederation. But on the third day, Dr. Jiwon made a discovery that changed everything. "Commander," she said, her voice tight with worry, "you need to see this data immediately." They were alone in their ship's laboratory. Jiwon's instruments had been scanning the area constantly, gathering information about this unknown species and their technology. "What is it?" Hana asked. "The star systems around human space," Jiwon said, her hands shaking slightly. "Look at this data from our long-range sensors." The holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of local space. 27 star systems surrounded the human colony, but something was wrong with all of them. "They're dying," Jiwon whispered. "Every single one. Their cores are being drained somehow. The nuclear fusion that keeps stars alive is slowing down." Hana studied the data. "How is that possible? Stars don't just die like that. It takes millions of years, not these stars." "Commander, I ran the timeline backwards. The stellar decay began exactly 307 years ago." The blood in Hana's veins turned cold. "That's when the humans arrived." "Yes. And look at this." Jiwon brought up another display. "The decay follows a pattern. It's strongest near human space and gets weaker as you move away. It's like something is feeding on these stars." Hana felt sick. The friendly humans, with their peaceful colony and strange technology, might be killing stars without even knowing it. Or worse, maybe they did know. "What do we do?" Jiwon asked. Hana looked out the porthole at New Seoul Station. Captain Lee had invited them to dinner tonight. The humans trusted them completely, sharing their secrets and their hopes for the future. "We gather more data," Hana said quietly, "and we pray we're wrong about what we're seeing." But deep down she knew they weren't wrong. The humans were causing the stars to die. The only question was whether they knew it, and what the Confederation would do when they learned the truth. Admiral Taiyang read the report 3 times before he believed it. The data from Commander Hana's mission was clear but impossible. An unknown species called humans was somehow draining the life from stars. "Quarantine the entire sector," he ordered his staff. "No Confederate ships go near human space until we understand what we're dealing with." Back at New Seoul Station, Dr. Jiwon worked day and night with a human scientist named Isol. The young human woman was brilliant, with quick fingers that danced over computer keyboards and a mind that grasped complex ideas instantly. "Your people have been very kind to us," Isol said as they studied star charts together. "But I can see worry in your eyes. What have you discovered?" Jiwon hesitated. She had grown to like Isol during their week of working together. The human was curious, funny, and completely innocent of any evil intent. But the data didn't lie. "Isol, I need to ask you about your technology, specifically how your ships travel between stars." "Oh, that's easy," Isol replied. "We use quantum fold drives. They've been standard for 300 years, much faster than the old chemical rockets our ancestors used." "Can you show me how they work?" Isol pulled up technical diagrams. The technology looked strange to Jiwon's eyes, but she began to understand the basic principles. Where Confederate ships used controlled space-time distortions to travel faster than light, human drives did something completely different. "We create quantum-entangled particles," Isol explained. "Half go with the ship, half stay behind. When we activate the drive, the ship's particles synchronize with the ones we left, pulling us across space instantly." "But where does the energy come from?" Jiwon asked. "That kind of quantum manipulation should require enormous power." "That's the beautiful part," Isol said with pride. "The entangled particles draw energy directly from the quantum foam of space itself. No fuel needed, unlimited range. Our ancestors were very clever." Jiwon felt cold dread in her stomach. "Isol, what exactly is this quantum foam?" "The background energy that exists everywhere in space. It comes from stellar fusion, gravitational effects, all sorts of sources. There's so much of it that taking a little bit causes no harm at all." "Show me the exact equations," Jiwon said quietly. For the next 6 hours, they worked through the mathematics together. Slowly, terribly, the truth became clear. The human quantum fold drives didn't draw energy from empty space. They drew it directly from the nuclear fusion reactions inside stars. "Oh no," Isol whispered when she finally understood. "Oh no, no, no." The human drives created quantum tunnels that reached across vast distances, connecting to the hearts of nearby stars. Each time a human ship made a jump, it sucked a tiny amount of energy from multiple stellar cores. One jump barely mattered. But millions of jumps over 3 centuries had drained 27 stars to the point of death. "We're killing them," Isul said, tears in her eyes. "Every time we travel, every time we use our technology, we're murdering stars." Meanwhile, Confederate scientist Bora worked at the military base on Centauri Prime, analyzing the data from Hana's mission. She was a mathematician, someone who saw patterns where others saw chaos. What she discovered made her hands shake. The stellar drain followed precise mathematical rules. The closer a star was to human space, the faster it died. The rate of energy loss matched exactly with the frequency of human space travel. Most disturbing of all, the pattern was accelerating. "Admiral," she reported to Taeyang, "the humans are expanding. New colonies, more ships, increased travel. The stellar drain is getting worse every year." Admiral Taeyang was a career military officer who had fought in 3 wars to defend the Confederation. He understood threats, and this was the biggest threat he had ever seen. "How long do we have?" he asked. Bora's calculations were grim. "At current rates, they'll kill every star within 50 light years in the next 200 years. If they continue expanding, they could drain the entire galaxy in less than 2,000 years. What about our own stars? Are we safe? For now. But if they develop longer range drives or build colonies closer to our space." Bora didn't need to finish the sentence. Taeyang made his decision. "Prepare the fleet. We can't let them spread any further." Back on New Seoul Station, Commander Hana tried to prevent a war. She met with Captain Lee and the Human Leadership Council, hoping to find a peaceful solution. "We didn't know," Captain Lee said, his face pale with shock. "Our ancestors designed these drives 300 years ago. The science was new, barely understood. They just wanted to reach the stars. The damage is already done," Hana replied. 27 stars are dying because of your technology." Isul spoke up from where she sat at the conference table. "We can stop. We can shut down all the drives, never travel between stars again. But that won't save the stars we've already hurt," said another human leader named Do-hyun. "And it will trap us here forever. No trade, no exploration, no growth." The debate continued for hours. Some humans wanted to stop immediately, accepting exile in their current system. Others argued they could find a way to fix their technology. A few even suggested that the deaths of distant stars was acceptable if it meant human survival and growth. Captain Lee listened to all sides before speaking. "We are not monsters," he said quietly. "We will find a way to make this right." But time was running out. Long-range Confederate sensors had detected something new and terrifying. Deep space monitoring stations on the galaxy's edge were going silent one by one. The last transmissions showed energy readings that made the human stellar drain look tiny. Dr. Jiwon was the first to understand what the readings meant. She burst into Commander Hana's quarters at 3 in the morning, her face white with terror. "Commander, something is coming. Something big." Hana sat up quickly. "What do you mean?" "The deep space stations. They're not just going offline, they're being consumed. Something is eating them and everything around them, including the stars themselves." "That's impossible. The energy signatures match theoretical models for stellar consumption on a massive scale, but the patterns are all wrong. This isn't natural stellar death or even human technology. This is something else, something that feeds on stars the way humans breathe air." Hana felt the universe shift around her. "You're saying something is following the trail of dead stars? Coming toward us? Coming toward human space, yes. The dying stars are like a beacon, calling to whatever this thing is." As if summoned by their conversation, an emergency alarm began blaring throughout the station. Captain Lee's voice echoed over the communication system. "All personnel to emergency stations. We have incoming contacts on long-range sensors. Multiple large objects, origin unknown, approaching from deep space." Hana and Jiwon rushed to the command center. The main display showed local space with dozens of red dots moving steadily toward the human colony. Each dot was enormous, larger than any ship in the Confederate fleet. "What are they?" Captain Lee asked. Nobody had an answer. The objects moved through space without any visible propulsion, leaving trails of dead matter behind them. They consumed asteroids, space dust, even light itself as they approached. "They're following the stellar drain pattern," Isul said in a small voice. "They're following the dying stars straight to us." Admiral Taeyang's fleet had been preparing to destroy human space to prevent further stellar damage. Now they faced something far worse. The human stellar drain had awakened ancient predators that made humanity's technology look like a child's toy. The first of the massive objects reached the outer edge of human space. Confederate sensors watched in horror as it approached a dead mining station on a distant asteroid. The object didn't attack or land. It simply passed by, and the entire asteroid ceased to exist, consumed so completely that not even atoms remained. "Dear gods," whispered Commander Hana. "What have we awakened?" The first devourer reached human space on a Tuesday morning when most people were drinking their morning coffee. It looked like a living mountain made of dark metal and flowing energy. As it passed through the Kepler 442 system, the red dwarf star began to flicker and dim. Captain Li Kyung stood on the bridge of New Seoul Station, watching instruments that showed the impossible. The star's core temperature is dropping. Fusion reactions are slowing down. Engineer Park Minji worked frantically at her console. The quantum field around the star is being disrupted. Something is pulling energy directly from the fusion core. Dr. Dongmin, the station's physicist, stared at his readings in amazement and terror. "This is what we've been doing to other stars, but a million times stronger. These things don't just drain stellar energy, they devour it completely." Commander Hana's Confederate ship had been monitoring from a safe distance. Now she opened communication with both the human station and Admiral Taeyang's approaching fleet. "All ships, we need to evacuate human space immediately," she broadcast. "These entities will consume everything." "Negative," Admiral Taeyang replied coldly. "This is humanity's fault. Let them face the consequences." Captain Lee heard the transmission and felt anger rise in his chest. "Admiral, we may have caused this problem, but destroying us won't solve it. These creatures will eat your stars too once they finish with ours." As if to prove his point, the devourer finished consuming the red dwarf's energy and began moving toward the next system. Long-range sensors showed more creatures approaching from deep space, all following the trail of dying stars that humanity had accidentally created. Young engineer Yuna worked in the station's deepest laboratories, studying the quantum fold drives that had started this disaster. She was brilliant but stubborn, refusing to accept that their technology was purely destructive. "There has to be a way," she muttered, running calculations for the 100th time. "If we can drain stellar energy, maybe we can use that same process as a weapon." Dr. Jiwon arrived at the human station just as the second devourer entered the system. She had convinced Commander Hana to let her work directly with the humans to find solutions. "Yuna, I've been studying your people's genetic records," Jiwon said excitedly. "There's something strange in your DNA that I've never seen before." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked, not looking up from her work. "Artificial genetic markers. Someone modified your ancestors' DNA long ago, probably millions of years before humans achieved spaceflight. The modifications seem designed to help your brains process quantum field mathematics." This got Yuna's attention. "That's impossible. Humans evolved naturally on Earth. Did you? Look at this data." Jiwon showed her genetic analysis charts. "These modifications are too precise to be natural evolution. Someone wanted your species to be able to manipulate stellar energy." Dr. Dongmin joined their conversation. "I've been studying the historical records from Earth. There are legends about ancient visitors, beings who came from the stars millions of years ago. Most cultures dismissed them as myths. What if they weren't myths?" Jiwon asked. "What if some other species modified human genetics long ago, preparing you for this moment?" Before they could explore the idea further, alarms began blaring. The second devourer had reached New Seoul Station's orbit and was beginning to drain energy from their fusion reactors. Captain Lee gave the order to evacuate, but there wasn't enough time. Millions of humans lived on the planet below, and the Confederate ships weren't large enough to save everyone. That's when Yuna made a desperate decision. "I'm going to try something insane," she announced, running toward the station's power core. "The quantum fold drives might be able to disrupt that thing's energy absorption." "Yuna, no," Captain Lee shouted. "You'll destroy the station." "Better than letting everyone die," she replied, beginning the startup sequence for the massive drives that normally powered starships. What happened next amazed everyone. Instead of tearing the station apart, the quantum fold drives created an energy field that actually pushed against the devourer. The creature slowed its approach, seeming confused by this new resistance. "It's working," Yuna yelled. "The quantum field is disrupting its feeding process." The devourer paused in space, its dark surface rippling with what might have been frustration or pain. For the first time since the creatures had appeared, one of them had been stopped. Admiral Taeyang watched from his flagship as the human technology actually hurt one of the cosmic predators. His military mind immediately grasped the implications. All ships, new orders, he broadcast to his fleet. We're going to help the humans. Sir? His second-in-command asked in surprise. These creatures are the real enemy. The humans might be our only hope of fighting them. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Confederate warships fired their most powerful weapons at the Devourer, but lasers and missiles passed through it without effect. The creature was made of energy and dark matter, immune to conventional attacks. But when Yuna activated the quantum fold drives again, the Devourer actually retreated. The human technology could hurt it because it worked on the same principles, manipulating stellar energy through quantum fields. We need more power, Yuna reported to Captain Lee. The drives can hurt it, but not enough to destroy it. Dr. Dongmin had an idea.
What if we reverse the process?
Instead of draining energy from stars, we force-feed energy back into the creature until it overloads. That could work, Yuna agreed. But we'd need the power of an entire star to do it. Captain Lee looked at the dying red dwarf that had powered their colony for 3 centuries. Use our star. It's already dying because of these creatures. Let's make its death count for something. The plan was dangerous beyond measure. They would channel the star's remaining energy through the quantum fold drives, creating a massive feedback pulse aimed directly at the Devourer. If it worked, the creature would be destroyed. If it failed, the explosion would kill everyone in the system. I'll pilot the energy pulse manually, Yuna volunteered. Someone needs to guide it to the target. Absolutely not, Captain Lee replied. I won't let you sacrifice yourself. With respect, Captain, I'm the only one who understands this technology well enough to make it work. As they argued, Commander Hana made a decision that surprised everyone. I'll help guide the pulse. My ship has the best targeting systems, and I know Confederate scanning technology better than anyone. Commander, Admiral Taeyang's voice crackled over the radio. I forbid you to. Admiral, these people are trying to save the galaxy. I'm going to help them. The next hour was the longest in human history. Yuna and her team worked to modify the quantum fold drives while Hana positioned her ship for the attack run. Dr. Dongmin calculated energy flows, while Dr. Jiwon monitored the creature's behavior. Patterns, it's learning, Jiwon reported grimly. The Devourer is adapting to our quantum disruptions. If we don't act soon, our technology won't work anymore. Ready, Yuna announced. Initiating stellar energy transfer in 3, 2, 1. The red dwarf star flared brighter than it had in millions of years as its entire remaining energy. Output was channeled through the quantum fold drives. Space itself seemed to bend around New Sol Station, as impossible amounts of power flowed through the modified engines. The energy beam struck the Devourer like a spear of pure starlight. The creature convulsed, its dark surface cracking and bleeding streams of consumed energy back into space. For a moment it seemed like the plan might actually work. But then the Devourer began to fight back. Instead of being destroyed by the energy pulse, it started to absorb it, growing larger and more powerful. It's not working, Yuna shouted over the noise of straining machinery. The creature is feeding on our attack. That's when Dr. Dongmin made a connection that changed everything. Yuna, reverse the polarity! Don't feed it energy, drain it. That's what I tried first. No, drain it the way we drain stars. Create a quantum tunnel and pull its energy away from it. Yuna's hands flew over her controls, reconfiguring the drives in ways they were never designed for. Instead of pushing energy at the Devourer, she created a quantum vacuum that began pulling energy away from the creature. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Devourer began to shrink, its dark surface collapsing as its stolen energy was ripped away. Within minutes, the cosmic predator dissolved completely, leaving only empty space where it had been. Cheers erupted across New Sol Station and the Confederate fleet. They had killed the Devourer. The impossible had become possible, but their celebration was short-lived. Long-range sensors showed the truth that made everyone's blood run cold. Hundreds more Devourers were approaching from deep space, drawn by the energy signatures of the battle they had just fought. We can kill them, Captain Lee said grimly, but there are too many. We need a better plan. 3 weeks after the first Devourer died, the war had spread across 12 star systems. Admiral Taeyang's Confederate fleet worked alongside human ships in battles that no one had imagined possible. They fought creatures made of living darkness that could consume entire planets in hours. Engineer Yuna barely slept anymore. Her small team worked around the clock to modify human quantum fold drives into weapons that could actually hurt the Devourers. The converted drives were ugly, dangerous machines that exploded half the time, but they were the only things that worked. "How many do we have ready?" Captain Lee asked during their daily briefing. 17 functioning quantum drain weapons, Yuna reported tiredly. "But we lost 4 ships yesterday when their drives overloaded. The modifications are still too unstable." Dr. G1 had been working with human scientists to solve the stability problem. "The issue is power flow. The drives weren't designed to handle the energy levels needed to fight these creatures." "Then we need better drives," said Seokjin, the civilian leader of Hope Colony. "Our people are evacuating from 12 worlds now. We're running out of places to run." The evacuation was a nightmare. Millions of humans fled their homes as Devourers consumed system after system. Confederate ships helped transport refugees, but there weren't enough vessels for everyone. Entire colonies were lost when the creatures arrived before evacuation was complete. Admiral Taeyang coordinated the defense from his flagship. The proud military leader who had once wanted to destroy humanity now worked desperately to save them. He had seen what the Devourers did to planets, consuming every atom of matter and energy until nothing remained. "Status report," he demanded from his bridge. "Crew, 7 more Devourers confirmed in the Vega sector," his tactical officer replied. "They're moving toward the industrial colonies on Kepler 438. How long until our ships arrive?" 6 hours, sir. But the evacuation won't be complete for 8 hours. Taeyang felt the weight of command crushing down on him. Every decision meant life or death for millions of people. Human and Confederate citizens were dying because he had to choose which worlds to defend. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted. "Incoming message from Dr. Jiwan. She says it's urgent." Dr. Jiwan appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Yuna worked at a bank of computers while other humans ran back and forth with tools and equipment. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough," Jiwan announced. "We know why the human technology works against the Devourers." "Explain quickly." "The Devourers are billions of years old. They fed on stars during the galaxy's early formation, then went dormant when most of the easy energy sources were consumed. Human quantum fold technology works exactly like their own feeding systems." Yuna looked up from her work. "We're not just fighting them. We're competing with them for the same energy sources. That's why our draining technology hurts them. More importantly," Dr. Jiwan continued, "we've discovered that humans aren't naturally evolved. Your DNA contains artificial modifications made by an ancient species. Someone designed your people to be able to fight the Devourers." Admiral Taeyang felt his worldview shifting. "You're saying humans were created as weapons?" "Created as guardians," Captain Lee corrected, joining the conversation. Dr. Dongmin found references in our oldest historical records. There was another species millions of years ago that fought the Devourers and won. Before they died out, they modified primitive humans to carry on their work. That's why human brains can process quantum field mathematics so easily," Yuna added. "We were designed for this. The revelation changed everything. Humanity wasn't a threat to the galaxy. They were its ancient protectors, awakening to their true purpose after millions of years. But knowledge alone wouldn't win the war. More Devourers arrived each day, following the trail of dead stars that humanity had accidentally created. The quantum drain weapons could kill individual creatures, but there were thousands of them scattered across space. "We need a way to stop them from coming," Seokjin said during an emergency meeting. "As long as they can follow the stellar drain pattern, more will keep arriving." Dr. Dongmin had been studying the ancient records left by humanity's genetic ancestors. The previous Guardians didn't just fight individual Devourers. They found a way to make entire regions of space uninhabitable for them. "How?" Admiral Taeyang asked. "They made the stars too bright. Devourers feed on stellar energy, but they can only process it at certain frequencies. If you force-feed too much energy into a star, it becomes toxic to them." Yuna's eyes lit up with understanding. "We could reverse our quantum fold drives completely. Instead of draining stellar energy, we could pump energy back into stars, making them burn hotter and brighter than normal." "How many stars would we need to modify?" Captain Lee asked. Dr. Dongmin's calculations were staggering. To create a barrier that would stop the Devourers, we'd need to brighten every star within 100 light-years of their approach route. That's over 3,000 stellar systems. Impossible, Admiral Taeyang said immediately. We don't have enough ships or equipment for that kind of operation. But Yuna was already working on the problem. What if we don't do it manually? What if we create self-replicating quantum field generators that can modify stars automatically? The idea was brilliant but dangerous. They would build machines that could reproduce themselves, spreading from star to star and modifying stellar cores to burn brighter. Once started, the process would be almost impossible to stop. The risks are enormous, Dr. Jiwon warned. Self-replicating technology could spread beyond our control. We might end up destroying more stars than the Devourers would. And if we do nothing, the Devourers will consume the entire galaxy, Captain Lee pointed out. At least this way we have a chance. The decision fell to Admiral Taeyang. As the senior military commander, he had the authority to approve or reject the plan. The fate of trillions of lives rested on his choice. How long would it take to build these generators? He asked. With both human and Confederate resources working together, maybe 6 months, Yuna replied. And how long until the main Devourer fleet arrives? Our best estimates say 8 months, Dr. Dongmin answered. Taeyang looked around the room at the faces of people who had been enemies weeks ago and were now the galaxy's only hope. Humans and Confederates working together, sharing technology and knowledge that had been kept secret for centuries. Do it, he decided. Build your star-brightening machines. But I want safeguards built in. Ways to shut down the process if it goes wrong. The next 6 months became a race against time and extinction. Every shipyard in human and Confederate space worked to build the quantum field generators. Scientists who had never met before collaborated on problems that pushed the limits of known physics. Yuna led the technical teams, sleeping in the workshops and eating meals while she worked. The generators had to be perfect, complex enough to modify stellar cores but simple enough to reproduce themselves reliably. Meanwhile, the war continued. Devourers consumed outer colonies while the evacuation fleet struggled to save everyone they could. Every day brought new reports of lost worlds and failed defenses, but there were victories too. Human Confederate joint task forces learned to fight the creatures effectively, using quantum drain weapons to kill individual devourers while protecting civilian evacuations. The alliance that had begun from necessity was becoming something stronger. First generator test in 1 hour, Yuna announced over the communication system. Captain Lee, Admiral Taeyang, and both human and Confederate leaders gathered to watch the most important experiment in galactic history. If the test failed, they would have to face the Devourer fleet with conventional weapons. If it succeeded, they might actually save the galaxy. The test star was a small yellow dwarf in an empty system. The quantum field generator approached it like a metal flower, unfolding solar collectors and field manipulation arrays. Then it began its work. The star's light changed from yellow to brilliant white as its core temperature increased. Energy output doubled, then tripled. The generator worked perfectly, brightening the star exactly as designed. Phase 2, Yuna announced. The generator began building a copy of itself from materials it collected from nearby asteroids. Within hours, a second identical machine took shape. The replication process worked. Success, Admiral Taeyang announced to the assembled leaders. Begin full deployment immediately. The first wave of generators launched that same day, heading for strategic star systems along the Devourer's approach route. As they spread across space, they would create a wall of brightened stars that no Devourer could cross. But as the generators began their work, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. The main Devourer fleet had accelerated. Instead of 8 months, they would arrive in less than 4. The race was getting closer. The main Devourer fleet arrived on a cold morning in December, 3 months ahead of schedule. Long-range sensors showed over 2,000 creatures approaching from deep space, each one larger than a moon and hungry for the energy of living stars. Captain Lee Kyung stood on the bridge of the New Sol, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Around him, the combined human Confederate defense fleet waited in formation. 300 vessels armed with quantum drain weapons faced an enemy that could devour worlds. Generator status report, Lee ordered. Engineer Yuna's voice crackled over the communication system from the command station on Hope Colony. We have 1,500 stars brightened and protected. The barrier is 60% complete. Will it be enough? Admiral Taeyang asked from his flagship. It has to be, Lee replied grimly. The first wave of Devourers hit the outer defense line like a tsunami of darkness. Confederate ships opened fire with every weapon they had, while human vessels activated their quantum drain systems. Space lit up with energy beams and explosions as the battle for the galaxy's survival began. At first, it looked like they might actually win. The quantum drain weapons killed dozens of devourers, and the creatures that tried to feed on the brightened stars found themselves poisoned by the toxic energy frequencies. But there were too many of them. For every devourer destroyed, 2 more took its place. The defense fleet was being overwhelmed. "We need the core barrier active now," Admiral Taeyang broadcasted to all ships. "Fall back to the inner defense line." The retreat was orderly but desperate. Human and Confederate vessels ran for their lives while devourers consumed everything they left behind. Entire star systems disappeared as the creatures fed, their dark forms growing larger and more powerful with each meal. Yuna worked frantically at her control station, trying to accelerate the generator deployment. "I'm pushing the replication rate to maximum, but it's still not fast enough. The generators need more time to spread." Dr. Jiwon stood beside her, monitoring the devourer advance. "At current speed, they'll reach the core worlds in 6 days. The generators won't be ready for at least 2 weeks. Then we stop them here," Captain Lee announced. He had been studying the tactical situation for hours, running calculations that all led to the same terrible conclusion. There was only one way to buy enough time for the generators to complete their work. "I'm taking a volunteer force to the Galactic core," Lee continued. "We'll use the central black hole's gravity well to trap the main devourer fleet while the generators finish the barrier." The plan was suicide, and everyone knew it. The Galactic core was the most dangerous region of space, filled with radiation, gravitational anomalies, and the massive black hole that anchored the entire Milky Way. No ship had ever survived a close approach to the core. "Lee, no," Yuna said, her voice breaking. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. The math doesn't lie. Someone has to hold them off, and this is the only place where we can do it." Admiral Taeyang's image appeared on the main screen. "Captain Lee, I volunteer my ship and crew for this mission." "Admiral, my people spent centuries believing we were the galaxy's protectors. Let us prove it's true." The volunteer fleet assembled quickly, 50 ships, half human and half Confederate, crewed by people who knew they would never see home again. They carried the most powerful quantum drain weapons ever built and the desperate hopes of trillions of living beings. Captain Lee recorded a final message to be broadcast across human space. "To all colonies, all ships, all people who carry human blood, remember that we were created to guard the stars. Today we fulfill our purpose." The journey to the Galactic core took 3 days. As they flew deeper into the galaxy's heart, space became more twisted and dangerous. Stars burned fierce and blue, packed so closely together that their gravity fields warped reality itself. "Devourer fleet entering the core region," reported the navigator. Through the viewport, Captain Lee could see them, a cloud of darkness flowing between the brilliant stars like oil poured into fire. The creatures moved more slowly here, fighting against the intense gravitational forces that ruled the galactic center. "All ships, activate quantum drain systems. Maximum power." The final battle began in the shadow of the galaxy's central black hole. 50 ships faced 2,000 devourers in a space where physics itself seemed broken. Energy beams lashed out in impossible directions as gravity bent light and time ran at different speeds. The volunteer fleet fought with desperate courage. They knew they were buying time with their lives, holding the devourers in the core's gravitational trap while Yuna's generators spread across the galaxy's outer reaches. "Generator deployment at 80%, came Yuna's voice over the long-range communication system. "Keep fighting. It's working." Ship after ship fell to the devourer's assault, but each death slowed the creature's advance. The quantum drain weapons pulled energy from the devourers, while the black hole's gravity prevented them from escaping. It was a trap that caught both hunter and prey. Captain Lee's ship was among the last survivors when the breakthrough came. "All generators are active," Yuna announced. "The barrier is complete." Across the galaxy, 3,000 stars burned brighter than they ever had before. The self-replicating generators had done their work, creating a wall of toxic energy that no devourer could cross. The creatures trapped in the galactic core found themselves cut off from their main fleet, unable to escape through space that had become poison to them. But the victory came at a terrible price. The quantum field generators couldn't be shut down. They had been designed to replicate and spread, and now they were modifying every star they encountered. The galaxy would be safe from devourers, but it would also be forever changed. The generators are continuing to spread, Dr. Jiwon reported from the science station on Hope Colony. They're brightening stars throughout the galaxy. Yuna stared at her instruments in growing horror. I can't stop them. The replication command is hard-coded into their basic programming. The full scope of what they had done became clear over the following weeks. The quantum field generators spread from star to star like a technological plague, brightening every stellar core they encountered. Within a few months, they had modified over 100,000 stars. The brightened stars were beautiful but deadly. Their intense energy output made space travel impossible for anyone using quantum fold technology. Human ships could no longer safely jump between systems without being poisoned by the same toxic frequencies that killed devourers. We've trapped ourselves, Captain Lee realized. He had survived the battle at the Galactic core, one of only 7 ships to escape the final confrontation. We saved the galaxy, but we can never travel through it again. The irony was bitter. Humanity had fulfilled their ancient purpose as guardians of the stars, but the price was eternal exile at the galaxy's edge. Their quantum fold technology, which had started the crisis, was now useless in a galaxy filled with brightened stars. Admiral Taiyang addressed the Human Leadership Council from his ship. The Confederation owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. You saved us all. At the cost of our freedom, Seokjin replied sadly. Our people are scattered across dozens of systems, cut off from each other and from the rest of the galaxy. We'll find a way to help, Commander Hana promised. Confederate ships can still travel safely. We can carry messages, supplies, whatever you need. But it wasn't enough. Humanity had become prisoners of their own salvation, forever watching over a galaxy they could never truly be part of. The brightened stars that protected everyone also isolated the very people who had created them. Yuna established the first Guardian station at the galaxy's edge, where the barrier of brightened stars began. From here, human engineers would monitor the quantum field generators and maintain the cosmic fence that kept the galaxy safe. Someone has to watch, she explained to the volunteers who stayed with her. The generators need maintenance and new devourers might still come from beyond the galaxy. This is our job now. Years passed. The Confederation built monuments to honor humanity's sacrifice and established trade routes to help the isolated human colonies. But humans remained exiled. Their quantum fold drives useless in a galaxy made safe by their own technology. Dr. Dong Min, now an old man, established a school on Hope Colony, where young humans learned about their history and their duty. We are the Guardians, he taught his students. We gave up our freedom so that others could live in peace. Some humans resented their fate, angry at being trapped by their own success. But most accepted their role with quiet dignity. They had been created to protect the galaxy, and they had done exactly that. At the galaxy's edge, Engineer Yuna, now called Guardian Yuna, maintained her watch over the barrier systems. She was older now, with gray in her hair and lines around her eyes, but her dedication never wavered. Status report, she asked her assistant, a young woman named Mira, all generators functioning normally. The barrier remained stable. No devourer activity detected. Yuna nodded and returned to her work. Through the viewport of Guardian Station, she could see the brightened stars that marked the boundary of safe space. Beyond them lay the dark reaches where devourers still roamed, held back by the wall of toxic light that humanity had built. Is it worth it? Mira asked quietly. Being trapped here forever?